Recently we had the Calling City, and it's the final calling before the World Championships this year in Philadelphia for Flesh and Blood. And there's something that I want to talk about that I've thought about for a while, and I found it pretty concerning, but I think that the Calling City really shows this problem in like the biggest, most clear light and example. So I'm going to show on screen, I have it here, the day 1 metagame percentage. Now, Verdance, Syndra, and Gravy are the most represented decks, right? By quite a bit. About like, there's 33 Verdance, 31 Syndra, and 29 Gravy. And then the next most represented is Acilio at 10. So clearly there's like a big pivot towards these three, like there's a big lean towards these three heroes. What I found interesting was that the rest of the metagame is actually pretty diverse. You know, you got Acilios, you got Dasheos, you got KOs, you got Kasais, surprisingly. You got 4 Jarls, 4 Archeos, you got 2 Valdas, a Betsy, a Phi, Teklo, a Pleiades, a Bolton, and a Toughnut. Like that's a very wide, very diverse, and I was like, wow, that's really, really cool. And then we go to day 2, where most of those heroes like that were diverse didn't really make it. You know, we have 1 Archeo that made day 2. We have 3 Victors that made day 2, 2 Kanos, 2 Kasais, and the most represented heroes that like had the most like day 2 conversion. We had like the most. We had 9 Syndras, 7 Verdance, and 6 Gravy Bones, and that was like in terms of like the amount of heroes, they were the biggest. And then when we get to top 8, it's an even worse picture because it's 5 Syndras, 2 Verdance, and 1 Prism. And the finals of this calling was a mirror match between the same Syndra deck. The thing that I've been thinking about for a while, and it's a concern I've had with this metagame generally, but I've never really quite been able to put my finger on like where the concern's coming from or like what's going on here. And I think that this kind of shows why. Currently, Flesh and Blood is in what could be best described as a triangle meta. We have, you know, Verdance, we have Gravy Bones, and we have Syndra. And they're all kind of competing with each other. And in order to do well in a metagame, you have to be able to beat, or at least have a good plan into all 3 of these heroes. But there's very few, if any, decks that have good game plans into all of these, right? Like, let's take Victor, for example. Victor has a really good Syndra matchup. You know, you have Test of Iron Grip, you have Test of Strength, which can clash when a gold, draw a card, keep blocking, you have Miller's Grindstone, which can grind them out, you have Peck Perfect, where they have to take damage or mill a bunch of cards. Like, you have a good game plan in Syndra, plus you have, like, a Disruption with, like, Spinal Crush and Boulder Drop and that kind of thing. You can have a really good Syndra plan, but if you're Victor and you get paired into Verdance and Gravy, your game plan is looking a lot less good now, because Gravy can, you know, have these big explosive turns where they're summoning multiple allies and just swinging a bunch of damage. Verdance can block a lot, and she can just, you know, push a lot more arcane, so you don't really get the full value out of your blocking cards. It's a lot harder of a matchup to win for Victor, right? Or if I'm playing like Dawnblade Dory, I firmly believe Dawnblade Dory has a really, really good Gravy Bones matchup. Her Syndra matchup's okay, Vern's matchup is not great. So if you're Dawnblade Dory and you're facing like Gravies, you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna win, I'm winning. But the second you face a Verdance, you're like, she's just gonna block out my Dawnblade and then send Arcane, I'm not gonna be able to get that tempo. The thing that I think this shows is that Flesh and Blood is seeing a point where each strategy has a clear best deck, right? If you want to play an aggro deck, you're playing Syndra, right? Like, there's no reason to play Syndra over there's no reason to play any other deck other than Syndra, right? Syndra is very consistent, she has very good numbers, she has, you know, consistent on-hits with Massive Momentum, she's always threatening an on-hit. Compare this to a deck like Dio, who has like, maybe like turn-by-turn better numbers than Syndra. If you don't have Boom Grenades, if you don't see your Max Vs, the game's going to be a lot harder for you. For Syndra, she just needs any head jabs, so like 90% of her deck, just 0 for 3, 0 for 3, 0 for 3, 0 for 4, 0 for 4, whatever, right? So Syndra's just more consistent than Dio, like, and you know, there's no reason to play like Dio over Syndra if you're trying to generally just win a competitive event. If you're looking for like a value type game plan, like I play Warriors because I like the consistency and I like the value. But I've been playing a lot more Gravy Bones recently because Gravy Bones has that value plan, has that consistency, but has a better, you know, he can start from turn 0, you know, hit the gas running and go. Because like, immediately you can start building allies, you can start building your board, you can have Chum, have Disruption with like your boat, with loot the arsenal, that kind of thing, which Warriors just don't have. So if you're trying to do a value game plan, you know, Gravy Bones is better. You know, like objectively speaking, he's just better. He can struggle into Syndra sometimes, sure, but like he can also like go really fast against like Verdance, which is also really, really good. And then Verdance, if you're trying to play like a defensive tempo type deck, there's just no match against Verdance. Like, Florian is like a defensive value type deck because he's just trying to get to that late game, trying to play Germinate, that sort of thing. But Florian's a lot slower than Verdance, right? Verdance, once she gets online, she can just explode with a bunch of Arcane and then win. Florian, you still have to block a lot and then wait for Germinate and then swing for a lot of Arcane damage. So they have similar end games of big explosive arcane, but Verdance can get there a lot more consistently and faster than Florian, right? So there's like no reason to play Florian over Verdance. Like, she has a better gravy matchup. She can struggle into Syndra quite a bit, but I do think like she has a chance into Syndra. I think Florian just doesn't have that same like ability to beat Syndra. I think Syndra just eats Florian. Because the more you block, she's going to be able to set up those 5-card hands, she's going to be able to explode, she's going to be able to do like, you know, big numbers, she's going to be able to like push over your reactions eventually. If you block 3 and she goes like, oh, Ancestral Empowerment, are you going to waste a whole defense reaction blocking 1 point of damage? That's a lose-lose situation, right? Which sucks. So, at this point in the Flesh and Blood metagame, there are clear best decks for each strategy, and I don't like that, right? I don't like that we're going into a World Championship where I'm thinking, okay, these are going to be the 3 best decks, and there's very few decks that can like really beat all of them. So it's just kind of between the 3, right? I'm predicting now for the World Championships, the top 8 is going to be, there's going to definitely be Syndra's, Verdance, and Gravy Bones, and I think it's going to be similar to the Calling Sydney, where there's going to be a lot of Syndra's and a couple Verdance. Maybe like one deck no one was expecting, like Prism, but even then the Prism like lost very early on. It's unfortunate. Like, I think they lost in the semifinals, or either in the quarterfinals, semifinals, something like that. But I know they did not make it to the finals. It's like what I think that what this shows is that power creep is kind of like, I don't want to say it's not been handled well, but I think that LSS needs to kind of like really like do a couple more bans. I don't think they're going to do it for this World Championship because it is very close by, but I think that there's still some level of like power creep overtaking the older decks or like other decks. That just hasn't really been addressed. I think, like, for example, with Syndra. Syndra's, like, the biggest example. I think that there's cards like Ancestral Empowerment and Throw Daggers that are just far too much value compared to other ninjas. Like, if I'm playing Ancestral Empowerment in Katsu, for example, right? It's not that big of a deal. Like, okay, it's +1. Maybe you're going to get your power turn. Okay, I can still block out and still, like, have a decent turn. But for Syndra, like, if she throws a 0 for 3 and I block it, and she's like, okay, Ancestral Empowerment. If I don't have, like, Calming Breeze or Shelter from the Storm in my hand, so there's like 2 cards, maybe, two generic cards that I need to have in my hand at that same time. Then I have to either take the hit, and now I have to more awkwardly commit more resources to blocking the next chain links, or I can use a defense reaction, which are typically 0 for 3 or 0 for 4, to block 1 point of damage. So I'm losing 2 to 3 points of value, right? Ancestral Empowerment, on its face value, it gives a ninja attack +1, and then you draw a card. So it looks like a 0 for 4 in terms of value on a reaction at face value, but generally in Syndra, you're getting a lot more than that 4 points of value, because you're getting more block value. You're probably sniping another defense reaction. Like, it's a killer. It's a really bad card. Verdance has her 6 copies of Burn Bear, right? You have 2 arcane spells that are on rate. It's a 2-card 6. That's on rate. You know, it's a 3 for 6. It's still 2-card 6. That's on rate for arcane, and that's nuts. Because arcane spells, their downside was always, okay, you do arcane, which is hard to block, but you're not the same rate as physical damage, right? Now you are the same rate as physical damage. It's a 2-card 6. That's harder to block. That's... Plus, like, she can defend really well. She has Felling of the Crown. She has Plow Under. She has, like, these big arcane spells. Plus this Disruption, which is guaranteed value, right? If I'm trying to disrupt, like, with a slow defensive plan, I'm not going to play Guardian. Because if I play Victor or something, I can be blocked out. Why would you play a disruptive tool that can be blocked out when you can play Felling of the Crown that's always going to get that value? It's Boulder Drop, but better. Like, huh? And Gravy, he can play like a slower, longer game, you know, set up some big ally turns, like set up some allies, push over damage, and then just like chip down the opponent in like chunks. Or you can play like a really fast game, like, you know, have stuff like Mage Masters, you know, utilize your rums, make sure you get like Chum out early, like really pushing damage fast. And then just win from there. Like, you all of these decks just do their things the best. And I do think that in order to fix this, what I think should happen is mainly like bans of older cards. I think like looking more at banning some older cards is probably like the right direction to go. I think the biggest problem is like with Syndra, having the fact that defensive decks are kept out and she has tools to punch over decks that just have enough mid-range capacity to try to keep her at bay is not a good combination. If I was LSS, I think the 2 cards I would be looking at are Throw Daggers and Ancestral Empowerment. They are just too much value in Syndra. Like, I'd say ban them until Syndra hits Living Legend. Because I wouldn't mind these, like, Ancestral Empowerment in Katsu or Fire or whatever. Like, I don't care, whatever. But in Syndra, they're just a little bit too strong. And, like, I think it's mainly also Mask and Momentum. Like, when they made Mask and Momentum, Flake Knives wasn't a thing. So I don't think they really counted for how much value all these cards put together are, right? I think, like, they're getting to a point where there's so many cards, and it's hard to, like, fully balance everything. So I think they do need to like be a little bit more ban heavy. I think they are doing a good job at being more ban heavy, but I think just kind of continuing that and addressing this triangle meta is like very important. I also think just like, I don't know, it just feels as though rather than different heroes having different strengths and weaknesses, like rather than it's like, for example, oh, Syndra is like more consistent but her damage ceiling is lower, and then Dio, who's like less consistent but her damage ceiling is higher, you have Syndra does more damage and is more consistent than Dio, right? And I think that's like a big, like that's a really big problem, right? That's really frustrating because it's like, why would I play other decks? And a big appeal of Flesh and Blood is people gain this like connection to their heroes. They really like playing their heroes, even if their hero's not the best. Like I had one pro quest and I brought Fang, right? Even though I knew, like, okay, I'm gonna, like, lose into Syndra more than likely. I had, like, a kind of a game plan in Syndra, but I didn't have enough time to test it. I had, like, a plan into Verdance, but 90% of it was just, I'm gonna flip a coin, hope for the best. But I like Fang. Fang is, like, one of my favorite decks. But I want to play it. But, like, every time I, like, play test them, I'm like, man, if I want to win competitive events, like, when I go to them, I'm gonna have to just play Gravy Bones. Like, I would rather play Fang. I love Fang. I don't dislike Gravy, but between Gravy and Fang, I'm more attached to Fang. And I think that just, the power creep is just getting to a point where there are, like, just a best deck for strategy. Now, I don't know the exact way to fix this, and I'm glad that I'm not the person who has to fix this. But I do think it's kind of like an internal conversation that definitely needs to be had at LSS, just like, okay, how do we maintain balance to where, like, there are decks that do things differently, like, do different things better than others, but not overshadowing other decks, which I think is the main thing here. You know, like, again, with Verdance, for example, like, if you're playing a wizard, like, Celio is a little bit of a coin flip, because he has to get God in a Flash. Verdance is like, I have 6 copies of Burn Bear, right? I have Fellings, I have Plow Unders, I just have more tools and can push more damage, while also defending very effectively, right? Just really good. And, like, these decks of Verdance and Gravy are just keeping the other defensive decks that would keep Syndra in check out, which is unfortunate because they're just the best defensive decks. I would love to see more variety and more, like, openness in the meta. But what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with my assessment? Do you guys disagree with my assessment? What cards do you think could or should be banned in this to fix this triangle meta? Do you think that any cards need to be fixed? Do you actually like this triangle meta? Do you disagree with me there? That's totally fine. Leave a comment down below and let me know. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button. I do try to stream Talishar as often as I can, so if you hit that bell notification, you will be notified when I am streaming. Right? No, you never know. It could happen at any time. I do not have enough free time to set up a schedule, so I just do it when I have free time. So yeah, hit that notification so you always know when I am streaming, and I stream all kinds of different heroes. Yeah, let me know down below. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.